As Frank said, my name is James May, and from 1999 until 2006, I had the honor of serving as an officer and a chaplain in the United States Army. During my last 3 years on active duty, I had the very unique opportunity to serve in Iraq with the soldiers on the front lines, to come back from Iraq and to serve for a year and a half at Walter Reed Army Medical Center with many of our soldiers who have been injured in the War on Terror. And then finally as a chaplain at Arlington National Cemetery for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation and for freedom. I'm here today because we have soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere around the world who are literally giving their lives for freedom. And at the same time, we have politicians in Harrisburg and in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere who are doing everything they can to take that freedom from us. And folks, it's time that we stand up for freedom. One of the things that I learned through my experiences in the military, but especially in the last 3 years on active duty, being with the guys in Iraq and at Walter Reed and at Arlington National Cemetery, one of the things that I began to realize is what a wonderful blessing freedom really is. I wish I could have every one of you go with me and see the picture that's in my mind's eye, because when we were in Iraq and we would go into these little towns and villages, you don't see this in the mainstream press, but I'm telling you as one who was there, the kids would run up to our vehicle and begin to swarm our vehicle. And they would come up to us because we were bringing them freedom. And these kids would come up to us and they would begin pulling on our sleeves and say, "Autograph, autograph." Because to a young Iraqi child who has never before had freedom, when he is suddenly given freedom, his hero is the American soldier who brought him freedom. His hero is not somebody that they find on a football field or a basketball court or on TV. His hero is not somebody they find on American Idol or Iraqi Idol. His hero was the soldier who brought him freedom. And these kids would come up to us and pull on our sleeve and say, "Autograph." And they didn't have pens, so we'd take pens out of our pocket. They didn't even have paper, so they would roll up their sleeves and we'd begin signing our autograph on these kids' arms. Folks, freedom for many of us is something that many of our children, and many of us, perhaps even here today, don't fully understand and appreciate what a wonderful blessing it really is. It's so easy for those of us who grew up in America, perhaps grew up in my father just retired, 34 years active duty military service. All my brothers are on active duty. For someone in my situation, and maybe your situation, it's very easy to take freedom for granted. But I'm telling you that when we take it for granted is when it will be taken from us. And we have politicians right now who are actively doing everything they can to take freedom away from us. Freedom that men and women are dying for, politicians are taking. And we see it in the health care bill that's before Congress right now. That is a robbing of your freedom. When we have the government taking money from one guy at the end of a street, when they're taking money from a young family at the end of a street who are struggling to pay their mortgage, and give it to a guy at the other end who doesn't pay his mortgage, you're robbing that young family of the freedom to pursue the American dream. When you take money out of my paycheck each week and give it to some Wall Street executive who claims he needs a bailout, you're robbing me of my freedom of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you take money away from my children in order to pay for some $3 billion plus boondoggle of a cash for clunkers or this health care bill, folks, what you are doing, what our politicians are doing, is taking away freedom from us. One other thing I learned, however, was not only the sacrifice that's being made for our freedom, but I began to realize what a blessing this freedom really is. Freedom is a wonderful blessing. And I'll tell you, when you begin to see how much people have sacrificed for our freedom, when you begin to realize that there are men and women right now dying for this freedom. I wish I could take everybody here and put you on a bus with me and take you down to Walter Reed and have you just walk around there and see the sacrifices that are being made for your freedom this afternoon. I wish I could have you stand there with me at Arlington National Cemetery and watch as a young woman who's pregnant with twins buries her husband, who sacrificed for freedom. I wish I could have you sit there with me in my office as a young woman comes in and says, Chaplin, I'm 29 years old and I'm a widow. My husband was killed in Afghanistan. Folks, there are so many people who are sacrificing so much for our freedom. And yet this afternoon we have politicians who are taking that freedom from us. Politicians who are actively taking the freedom away from us that others have given so much for us to have. And I, for one, as a military veteran, as an Iraq War veteran, on behalf of many men and women who are serving in our military, I, for one, say it's time that we stand up. And here in Scranton and northeastern Pennsylvania, it's time that we, along with our soldiers elsewhere, that we begin to fight, and we begin to say that we're going to fight for freedom because we want our freedom back in America. Thank you very much.